I have a lot of sobriety dates, but the one that was given to me by you all and God is October 18th, 2016. I have a sponsor, she is a sponsor, and I sponsor women in this program by the grace of God. Even if this doesn't go well, since Bobby asked me to speak, I've written 85 pages about my life, and things that have come up in that 85 pages are a miracle. Things I never thought would come up. So they'll be part of my story today only because Bobby asked me. So I feel overwhelmed with gratitude to be sitting here right now. So thanks. I hope I don't offend anyone. It's my opinion, my experience. So the beautiful thing is, if you want to talk about it after, I'll just confirm it's my opinion. And then we'll talk about yours, which is great, because that's how AA works. But anyways, I guess I'll just get started. I grew up, brought my big book just because I'm a big book thumper and whatever. I'm not a purist, but I'm gonna try to limit my other activities. So please, again, forgive me. So I grew up I was born and raised in South Detroit, literally, like the song, the bar song. I was born to a woman with a high school education and a father with a couple years of college. I grew up middle class. To be very honest, this part of my story is going to fast forward because I do not remember anything up until 11. I'm working on getting my memory back by getting pictures, but I don't have access to a lot of pictures. That's another part of my story. So really my story starts at 11. So my mom died when I was 11. My mom had a brain aneurysm, and one day she was at the house and she didn't feel good, and then the next minute we were at her hospital bed where they told us maybe we could talk to her. We weren't sure if she could hear us. I was 11, my sister was 9. No one had really died before that, so I didn't really understand. Frankly, I was just pissed I wasn't home or we weren't playing, around the house. So that kind of starts my story because after that, life, I guess, changed, but then again, I don't remember the rest. So in childhood, Mom passed away, and, Dad was super fucked, right? Dad had 2 daughters that he didn't know what to do with. He had been the working breadwinner, so he was gone a lot just because, right, he had to put food on the table. I didn't know that until I did the steps. So I thought Dad was gone just because Dad didn't want to be around. So I've held that belief for a really long time. So, Mom dies, and Dad starts, speed dating naturally to try to get a woman in the house. So he goes through a couple women, and during this time, there's really no there's no talk of Mom dying. It's just like we moved over at the dinner table, and we don't talk about it. We don't act like it happened. It doesn't come up at school. It doesn't come up at home. Family doesn't mention it. Mom didn't die. Never had a mom. Don't know where she is. No one believes in God at this point, so I am not aware that Mom is all around me. I think that I have to go to the cemetery in order to be close to Mom. So then I get resentful. I have to go to the cemetery because the cemetery is creepy as fuck. So there's not a lot in that time frame that we didn't go to counseling. I learned at that point to be an emotion compactor. Smash it down, take more in, smash it down, don't say anything. And I'm still very excellent to this day about that. As you can, I'm so disassociated with my story that I don't have a lot of emotion. I know it happened, but I'm working on connecting with it. So anyways, we're in the house. This is about the age 11, 12 that I start drinking. I start drinking. I'm introduced to pot, and that happens at 12. So in my neighborhood, middle class, it's like I don't know if they just don't expect you to drink at 12, because it's weird, right? But we were, and no one noticed. My dad was luckily loaded by the time he got home, so there was no sniff test or anything. So I was taught, go out, drink, get home, and get to your room. The last place you wanted to be was in the kitchen or in the common area when Dad got home from work, because there was no predicting what mood Dad would be in. And unfortunately, at that time, I took that as Dad doesn't care, Dad doesn't love us, Dad doesn't want us. Dad wishes this could all go away. So Dad gets remarried when I'm 12. So less than a year later, Dad decides to get remarried. And we move across the town. So 12 years old, I start a new school. I have 2 new brothers, and I'm in a world of hate. I hate everybody. I hate my brothers. I hate my stepmom. I hate my dad. I hate everybody, and I'm further away from the cemetery. So we move into this house all together. They kind of spring it on us. They took us out to one of those game places, as if arcades would help the fact that you're moving me the fuck across the town. But anyways, that's kind of how things are done. Here you go, deal with it, stuff it down. So we move into this house, and my mom's stuff goes all in the basement. So photo albums, back then they did the videos of your birthdays, all of that gets put in the basement. And the story goes that throughout the time I moved out at 17, if you went near that stuff, you were punished. So I was not, to this day, have not looked at a full photo album of my childhood, because I've asked for them. My mom's sisters has asked for them, and my dad is holding them. So really, physically, emotionally, mentally, Mom is gone. Mom is gone. We're not talking about it. We're not bringing it back up. And I'm 12, 13, so I'm doing things like getting my period. I'm doing things like needing a bra, and I don't have anybody. My stepmom isn't interested in helping. My stepmom is very interested in us helping to clean the home. So we had a chore list that ended up being evidence. I'm hopping around. A friend's family was gonna adopt me, and this chore list was gonna be evidence as to why the home was unstable. I can't even tell you. To this day, I have an obsession with cleaning, because I'm afraid if I don't clean, I'll be punished. And so my punishments ranged. There was abuse in the household. The first time I remember it happening, I was 11, and my dad just started kicking me. A lot of times in between then was basement, paddle, belt, hand. Nothing that would cause bruising on the outside, but enough done on your backside. So you don't go into the classroom with your ass hanging out. So people ask why teachers didn't know or no one knew, and that's why. I learned that you don't break the rules. I learned you don't lie, because you get hit. So we can't. My stepmom and my dad both discipline us, but my brothers are so angry and they're recovering from their parents' divorce, so my dad is not allowed to discipline them. So I have 2 parents disciplining me. So if you piss my stepmom off, my dad's coming for you. So my stepmom learned very early on to play that game, to play that card. So we were very heavily manipulated by my stepmom. My parents had a very toxic relationship. They're still married. My parents would fight aggressively, and then they would have extremely loud sex, which, if it's in your story, then you know. But it really taught me that you could do whatever the fuck you want, but if you sleep with someone, then everything is resolved. So everything is better, which I carry into my story. But there are times that we've slept in cars. My sister, to this day, she brought up when my dad hit my stepmom, and I said, well, do you think that's okay? And she said, well, she hit him first. And I said, oh, okay. You know, there's a lot of denial in my family. And I was a denier too until I got here, right, and realized I would die. So there are times that my dad would lock my stepmom out of the house just completely naked. I remember her throwing pebbles at my window to let her in, and then to sleep with us because she couldn't enter the household. So you have this woman that feels like she despises you. She uses everything against you. You're grounded all the time, yet she needs you to unlock the door for her to come in. And I'm looking for a mom, right? I'm on the mom search. So if she gives me an inch of that, I trust her. I believe that she's going to do right by me. And that's not what happens when we wake up in the morning. When we wake up in the morning, we go to the breakfast table like we're on a fucking TV show, and, you know, we're all talking like nothing happened. Like, you weren't outside last night. And then another big part of my story, my dad got pretty hammed at a wedding, and he hit on the waitress, and my stepmom left him there. So my dad comes home, a little, you know, angry, and my stepmom convinces us that my dad is unsafe, my dad is gonna hurt us, we need to get out of the house. She's gonna save us. She's gonna protect us from our angry father. We slept in a car, we came back, we had breakfast, nothing happened. We had grapefruit, like a fancy breakfast. And you know, it just was a lot of manipulation. I really thought that my dad didn't care and didn't. I thought my dad went to sleep at night thinking of ways that he could fuck up my sister and I. I thought that he schemed ways to make our lives harder. And what I realize now is my stepmom was just looking for attention too. Her parents had passed away, and my dad was all she had. So it was just a competition. I just didn't realize I was competing for anything. So, you know, that's kind of the childhood. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. I remember being in my room. I remember constantly being grounded. I remember listening to songs on repeat, just thinking about how I would get out, how I was going to get out. And then when I was 16, I told a lie. I'd been grounded for like 3 months. And I snuck over to the neighbors who were my saving grace. They knew everything, and they believed everything, saw everything. So they were the one family that they knew all the secrets, or most of the secrets, because they saw it. They physically saw it, which was really helpful when you're in a time where you don't know if it's real or not. You don't know if what's happening is crazy or if you're crazy. I spent a long time thinking I was crazy. And so I went over to the neighbors, and I used their internet, whatever, AOL, AIM. You know, I was like chatting with a friend, and anyway, somehow they found out about that. So my dad said, pack a bag and come downstairs. And he sat me down at the kitchen table, and he said, you know, for a family that's so dysfunctional, the fact that so much revolves around a kitchen table is so ironic. It's so fake, you know, it's so fake. It's like the epitome of my childhood. There's no talk about how your day was, but you're sitting as a family at the freaking kitchen table. So, anyways, so my dad has me pack a bag, and he said, did you go on I want you to think very carefully about this. Did you go on the internet at the neighbor's house? I said, no. And he said, well, I'll give you one more try. Did you go on the internet at the neighbor's house? I said, no. He said, get the fuck out of here. So I grabbed my bag, which in retrospect packed extremely horrible. I grabbed my bag, and I hit the road, and I wasn't to know that I wouldn't live at home for 3 more months. I went to a friend's who was going to adopt me. My aunt, who is a large part of my story. My aunt and uncle are the reason I believe I'm alive, because they're the only people in my lives that show me unconditional love. My dad let them see us by the grace of God, and that's why I'm here. They're everything to me. But they convinced me not to be adopted. They thought that would screw up my college plan, because I had to get out. The plan was to get out. And this had been the plan and been known everyone in the family since I was 13. So keep your head down, get out. The good thing was I got such good grades because all I did was sit in my room and study. So I was excelling at school. And I played a lot of sports because I didn't want to be home. So I looked like such a great kid, and then inside I go home and I get my ass kicked. It was hard. And so I move in with my aunt and uncle, and the plan is to stay there senior year and then go off to college if I get in. So senior year comes around, and somehow word gets out that I'm not living at home, that my dad kicked me out. And so that's not going to fly with my dad. So my dad gets a hold of the school counselor before I do, because counselors didn't help much when my mom died, so I've kind of written them off. But yet I became one. So that's fantastic right there. This just in. So my dad tells him that I ran away, I'm being disobedient, and my dad refuses to sign the emergency contact papers. The crazy thing about that is they won't let you go to high school if your parents don't sign off on those emergency papers. So my high school says you can't start. And then the school counselor does this fun thing, like, if you move back in with your parents, so I'm screwed. I either go back and put my head down for another year, or I stand my ground. So we have this mediation session, and my stepmom just looks at me in front of my aunt, uncle, and tells me, I want nothing to do with you. So I'm like, well, this mediation didn't go well, but, like, my aunt and uncle chauffeur them out of the house, and then we talk about it, and I decide to move back in because I feel I don't have a choice. This whole time, I mean, it seems pretty obvious if I'm in this room, drinking was a part of it. It feels silly to mention that. But drinking, I checked out. I was gone. I didn't care about being grounded. I didn't care about the family. I didn't care anything when I was drunk. Oh, my God, the feeling of not caring was beautiful. So I moved back in, and my stepmom, the day I moved back in, I had tried to go back in to get more clothes. That resulted in them changing the locks. There's some stuff in there. But the day I moved back in, she told me, I want nothing to do with you. Just stay out of my way. And I was like, gladly, dude. So I got an early acceptance to Michigan State, and I was like, the end is in sight. That year was hard. I mean, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs. We drank before school. High schools that have separate parking lots for seniors is just madness to me, because it's like they serve booze, right? There's like a bartender at those parking lots. It's wild, right? So we would just go to school and we'd be trashed. But if you get good grades, they totally just don't see it. And I was the girl with the dead mom, so, you really just thought I just needed space. You just didn't want to intervene in my life. A mom dying is one of the most, at a young age with young daughters, is such an uncommon, hurtful thought that people can't handle it, so they don't handle it. So we didn't talk about it. So it's kind of supported. I don't know why I keep backing up. So anyways, I go off to college, and I take with me thoughts that are, dad doesn't love me. If you have sex with people, you fix everything. I'm on my own, and I'm going to be on my own forever. Nobody loves me. Nothing I ever did was good enough. I got all A's. I got into Michigan State, and I'm still getting hit with this paddle. I don't know. I don't know at this point what I'm doing. I just hope that I never go back. So I know that every day when I wake up, I put on a shield of armor, and I take what the day needs me to take. I worked a full-time waitressing gig in college about the whole time. I got a master's degree working full-time. I just do what it takes. At work, people tell me, oh, we love you. I'm like, yeah, I have the disease of workaholism, so I know you do, right? So I make a good worker, right? So I did whatever it took. And that led me in college to, I had boyfriends the whole time, but I need attention, and I'm tremendously attached, so I'm a cheating girlfriend. I'm a mess. I've cheated on everyone I've ever been with. I've cheated. I have to say that because hating my dad for speed dating doesn't make a lot of sense when I say out loud I cheated on everyone I've ever been with in my life. I cheated on them. I slept with anybody that gave me attention. I don't have a part of I've heard this before, and I love it so much. I don't have a part of my story where I have sexual abuse because I never said no. I never said no. I never didn't go home with someone. And if I did, I promise you, I was there. I was consenting because I needed it. I needed sex more than I needed air. And I just thought it was the answer. I thought I would find the love of my life at 2 a.m. closing time. And I sure tried. I tried really hard. And I had a lot of friends. Nothing's wrong. I have a lot of friends all the time, but they never know anything about me. That's the key. And someone looked in here at me one day and was like, I know nothing about you. And I was like, but you're one of my top 5 friends. Like, I guess this is more about me. But I just got good at stuffing it down. I didn't see why all that mattered. And people, if you let them, will talk about themselves. So if you just let them talk about themselves, you don't have to tell them what happened to you. Anyways, that was college, and it was just a mess. I don't know to this day how I survived, walking around at 4 a.m. drunk by myself. The things that I did as a female in college, I should not be here sitting talking to anyone. I don't need to go into more detail. There were drugs, there was alcohol, there was sex, there was good grades. I was paying all my bills because I was obsessed with working. Because my biggest fear to this day is if I lose my job, I will be a 13-year-old in my father's house. That's my truth. That's my truth. And that's why I sit here and that's an ad. That's why I sit here and I have to tell my story, because my story still has bondage over me, and I have to tell it because I have to be free. And if I leave out the parts about being a stupid drunk and a complete whore, then I'm not telling my truth. So I moved to Florida, and I moved to Florida for a male, and soon after we cheat on each other like a double winner. And I'm left in a home. So that's when my drinking, I would say, became not college. Not just because I wasn't in college, but it kept going. I mean, I drank things that people said, well, why do you drink that? I said, well, it's got 12%. That's all I needed. Like, what do you mean the taste? Like, that's so irrelevant. I became an economic, I got a master's in school counseling, but damn if I wasn't an economics major. I'm like, well, the 30 rack is $12 and the 28 pack is $9. So really what we're doing here, like whatever benefited me to get more. And that's what I did. And I moved to Florida, and I went through my ritual, and that left me, I was never single for long, because when you play so many games, you become interested in things that a lot of guys are interested in. So I'm an excellent dart player. I love football, but truly today I do love football, right? So, but back then I was like, yay, drinking Monday, Sunday, Thursday, sometimes Friday and Saturday with college. So, it was the best sport ever. Like, so, I got guys' attention easily, and I never learned makeup. I never learned. I just recently was fitted for the first bra I've ever been fitted for in my life. So what I'm saying is I needed to know other things. I needed to be creative. I couldn't woo you with eyeliner. That wasn't my thing. I was never taught that. I to this day don't know how to blow dry my hair. I have Michelle in the back that saves my life. Keeps my hair going. But I just wasn't taught those things, so I had to use my body. And it worked. So I started dating someone now about 6 years ago, and my drinking started with, and I want to get to this is what happened. This is the what happened part. So I started drinking things that were crushable. So like I would do the paper wines, and I would do Four Locos, and I would do things that could hide in the center console. And then quickly that escalated to one bottle, to the bigger bottle, to the jug. The time I stopped drinking, I was on about a jug and a half, 2 jugs a day. And I remember the sound of them hitting the back seat of my truck, just rolling around, just for anybody to pull me over. Because at that point I had compartmentalized and pushed down so much that I didn't equate drunk driving with bad. If the cop would have pulled me, I don't know to this day. I don't know. Someone told me once, the reason you're here is because you'll pass this on. And by God, I tried to do that every freaking day. But I started coming to AA in 2016, and I was so obsessed. And this, I'm trying. See, yeah, it's bad that I'm trying not to cry. If I cry, don't hand me tissues because I need to cry. But I loved AA. The people in this room, and a lot are still here today, they were smiling and they were hugging me, and that made me so uncomfortable, but I was so obsessed with it that I was a drunken girl that went back to AA more than members of AA went to meetings. I was at meetings. I'm looking at John. I was at meetings every day. Every day. I wanted what they had. I wanted so bad what they had. They looked so happy, and they were so free. And at first it's annoying, right? Like, they got really big smiles, like, like teeth, all teeth. And I couldn't even, thank God my eyes point out, because at that point I was just avoiding mirrors. I couldn't look at myself. And so the day I surrendered, I woke up about 3 months prior. My boyfriend at the time tells me, I'm not in love with you. So there's a parade of things he said, like, you should control your drinking, you're an alcoholic, you should go to AA. But for whatever reason, the dagger for me was, I'm not in love with you anymore. I'm like, cool, throw the white flag, I gotta on to the next one. So at that point, I'm living in the spare bedroom. I'm drinking then openly. He had installed a camera in the front driveway. So what I did is I pulled my car up to where the camera stopped. Then I grabbed my jugs of wine and I took them back to the back patio. And then I got back in my truck and pulled in, like, I'm not drinking. No purses, no big bags. And then I went through the house to the back and then drank. I didn't know then that I appeared blacked out when I was blacked out. So I thought, no one knows. I was so smart. But yeah, and I mean, alcoholics are smart. The things we did, the ways we hide it, the ways we snuck it into work, the ways we obtained it, we're intelligent people. It's, I don't mean to glorify it, but it is fantastic what an alcoholic is able to do before they surrender. But it's even more fantastic what they can do after. So my bottom, I roll over. It takes me like 10, I remember looking at the ceiling fan. It takes me about 10 seconds to figure out where I am, because that's one of my things is I don't know where I am. So I wake up and I'm just immediately hit with like, just someone compared the tongue to driftwood. I mean, my tongue, I'm doing wine, so I got sweaters on my teeth, like individual knitted hoodies, right? So I'm like, please let there be something in the closet. Please let there be something in the closet. So I want to fast forward, but that desperation of hoping I didn't drink it all the night before, I'll never forget that feeling, crawling to the closet, like, please don't let it be empty, because I don't know what I'll do. And then, swallowing your bile, convincing yourself when you get the alcohol not to throw it up because you'll be wasting it. I knew at that point the only thing that would take away the shaking, the heart palpitations, the headaches would be alcohol. I had been hospitalized for hallucinations. I had hallucinated a lot when I tried cold turkey. And I don't recommend that for anyone. Anyone struggling, never do it by yourself, because it almost killed me. And I don't want to go into detail, but it was very, very bad and traumatic. And that day I came to an AA meeting, and I was drinking on the way, and then a guy looked at me, and his liver was failing, and he looked at me and he said, I felt he looked at me. He could have been looking, I don't know, at his shoes, but he was looking at me and he said, if you're still unsure if you're an alcoholic, fucking look at me. And he was yellow. He was jaundiced because he was dying of liver failure, of his second liver, which I didn't know his second liver until after he passed. And I got up and I was like, this is too much. I'm sweating. I'm trying not to vomit. but I'm also freezing. And so I walked out to my car in an intention to get more alcohol, and then I realized I didn't have the keys in my hand. And I grabbed my phone, and what happened next is I think I was being pushed by a power greater than myself. And I grabbed my phone and I called my girlfriend at work, and I started crying, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I was like, I need help. And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm an alcoholic. I need help." Anyways, that set in motion a very long weekend where I again went into near hallucinations, and my sponsor at the time took me to get alcohol because she knew I wouldn't make it till Monday. And I got a bed on Monday, and then I stayed in that treatment center for 40 days. I watched women leave. I watched women come back. I watched women be shoved out of vans after they left and did heroin. I watched a woman get heroin in a shampoo bottle while we were there. And I knew I wasn't fucking using. I was not leaving. I was not going against medical advice. I wasn't putting in 24, 48, 72 hours. I'm staying. I'm staying for as long as they tell me to stay. And the second I got out of there, I took a train back to Orlando, and I hit the Dr. Phillips night meeting. And I go to 99% of meetings daily. It's very rare that I miss a meeting, and that was almost 2 years ago, by the grace of God. And I entered, and I brought the big book just because there's some things that are really important to me. On page 25, if you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. I had pretty much learned that, right? I had pretty much been trying and figured that out. And when it talks about keep coming back, it's not what our literature says. Our literature says, if you think you might not be an alcoholic, go ahead. Go, sweetie. Can picture you saying this. Go try some controlled drinking. Have a great time. I did. I took that literally. I went for 10 months and tried controlled drinking. And I'm telling you, for a 31-year-old that was trying to be numb, I became numb. And being numb is the darkest, I have chills, the darkest place I have ever been in my entire life. The place that I've reached where I have no feelings and no hope and no desire to live is the darkest place that I hope I ever get to in my entire life. And if you're anywhere near there, there's a solution. And it's this program. I'm sitting here telling my story, and I'm a girl that if wine spilled on this carpet, I would have attempted to lick it up. And I don't, a lot of people, it's funny, but it's true, right? So, step one, I had to look around. I had to want what they had, and I did. Right? It took me 10 months of convincing. And then step two, I came to believe there was a power greater than myself. I came to believe that I wasn't in charge, right? And I wasn't the one that, there's no reason I can be alive. So if I'm alive today, then there's something greater than me. And I was fine with that. It took me a long time to do the steps. I thought, that's great, it worked for you guys. It is not going to work for me. That's so fantastic that you're beautiful and sober, but that will not, that's not what God intended for me. That's not what anyone intended for me. I was intended to die of this disease. And it took a long time for Jeffrey and Mary to convince me otherwise. And I'm so lucky that they kept trying. And then I moved on to step 4, and I did my part. And my part was the most freeing thing in the whole world. Realizing that I've carried around a want and a need for love from people that weren't capable of loving or needing themselves is beyond me. My sexual inventory. What was your part? Shouldn't have slept with all of them. That got me through to a place where I understood that what I was taught this in childhood, it was all I saw. So what was my part? I took it on for 20 more years. I took it on and I used it. I used the actions of the people that I hated to run my life. And then I wondered why my life was so shitty. I don't know how to say that more clearly. Whatever your parents did to you, your part could be, like mine in my experience, was what story are you carrying around today from your childhood that is dictating your choices, because that could be in step 4 and you could be missing it, because I was. I was spent so much time thinking I hate these people and I wish my dad would have died instead of my mom. And then I turned 29 and I surrendered. And I still thought that. That's my part, right? You know, I got to steps, I want to speed up. I got to steps 8 and 9, and I didn't say I'm sorry. I didn't say I'm sorry. They've heard sorry. Everyone's heard sorry. I'm so sorry. Glug, 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 glug. I mean, those are my sorries. So I said, I was wrong. And I got that from another speaker, and that's how I do my amends. I was wrong. What I did was wrong. And if they say, fuck off, I'm like, I will work directly on that. You are right, because I was wrong. You know, and I continued on 10 and 11. 10 is a miracle because you just try not to do things throughout your day that you have to tell your sponsor about, right? I'm like, let me not get mad because my hand hurts and I don't want to write that down. You know, and there's a lot more. I read about 100 pages last night, and there's so much. In step 12, there's one page that was pointed out to me recently, and it's 124. Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the only thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently it is almost the only one. This painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problem. Boom. There you go. Like, that's why we do what we do. And sponsoring has changed my life. Sponsoring is the reason, because my girls do what I tell them to do, is the reason I was able to write 85 pages about my past and then share it with my sister. If you're not sponsoring and you're through the steps, in my opinion, you're missing out, because the people are beautiful. People are beautiful. And every time you tell your shitty story, it gets a little bit easier because of the people around you, because they can say, me too. There was something in my 4th step that I thought, I'm taking this. I got a God now. I'm going to take this to the grave. And you know what? It wasn't an hour before I had Mary on the phone. I had remembered that I had a little sister, and when you find out you have lady parts, I showed her lady parts. And I was like, oh my God, I touched my sister. Oh my God, right? Oh my, if I had a brother, would have touched him too. Like, it's just what kids do. And if it's not your experience, sorry. If it is, I'm not saying you're weird. I'm just saying I'm not weird. And I took that to Mary, because I'm not willing to fucking die because I touched my sister when I was 11 years old and taught her she had a vagina. Like, no, not happening. And I'm just saying that when I got to 12, you know, I'm sure there's so much that I'm thinking about saying, but, you know, sponsoring to me is like, well, I didn't like really good wine. I like $11 wine. So sponsoring to me is like $11 wine. Like, it's the shit, you know? And AA taught me that I can have a news story. Joe specifically told me that the steps change my childhood. And that is 100% what happened. AA taught me I'm sick and I'm not bad. AA taught me that. Like, oh my God, this freaking room that I've been driving by for 6 years taught me that. And saved my life. Saved my life. I should not be here today based on the things that have happened in my life. I should be dead or in jail. And now I have a full-time job. I have a dog and 2 cats. I have a boyfriend that looks at me the way that you guys are looking at me right now. And God is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, but like, he's a pretty close second. And I'm loved because of who I am, not because of what I do or how many times I have sex with you in a day. And I can't tell you what that means to a girl like me. And And today, you know, I guess I'll just close. I'm happy, joyous, and free, and that used to bother me so much. I'm like, oh, you're happy, joyous, and free. You couldn't have stopped at happy. Like, we get it. Those are synonyms. But but you know, they're not. They're not. And God, I'm so lucky. Thank you for asking me to speak, and thank you for being here. And please just call someone. I get to send this to a girl that picked up the phone when I called, and I don't know what would have happened had she not picked up the phone. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't been coming here for 10 months as a drunk. I don't know what would have happened if someone had a power trip and kicked me out, intoxicated of the night meeting. I have no idea. And it didn't happen. And I come here and I'm all teeth when I smile, when I see you guys. And I'm so grateful for you saving my life. Okay. That's good.
Does anybody have any comments for Jenna?
I do. I'm Michael Knack.
Hey.
You didn't see your boyfriend today, right? You tell him he's a lucky guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Hilda. I have a note here that I carry with me. Written on November 2nd, 2016. From Jenna. I am pretty confident that this new journey will be the last time I had to pick up a white chip. I'm really glad I finally gave in, that's for sure. And that's all I've heard today. God bless you.
I love you.
Jade, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jade.
So, I just want to say thank you for helping me out a lot and being there. Me and Jenna's boyfriend go back a while. And when I decided to start on this journey, she just welcomed me with open arms, like she knew me my whole life. And she saw me the day I had to go see my bookie for the last time. And I'm pacing across straight back through her house like, dude, this is crazy. And she's like, if you just don't sit down. And that's probably the best thing she said. And then the other day we're sitting watching TV and I'm like, I hate this person. I hate this person. I hate this person. And she's like, step 3.
Four.
Step 4, I'm like, I'm not there yet.
Get ready.
The other night, or yesterday, I'm like, fuck, dude, are you sure I can come over? Like, I've been over every night since, and Jenna shoots me a text, and it was just so welcoming, just to, someone that I don't know from hole in the wall to just be so opening. Now hearing your story, just thank you.
Thank you.
I said, are you going to really lose 9 days of sobriety over worrying about how I feel about you being in my living room? And then he came over.
Hi, I'm Jenny, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jenny.
Yeah, Jenna, I've heard lots of your story, but not in a sitting, and it was wonderful. It's you truly shared your experience, strength, and hope, and what it was like, what it's like now, and that the solution is the steps. So that is a great message, and I'm so pleased to be on this journey with you. I remember when you came in, I was one of the ones that must not have a smeller in my nose. I didn't realize you were drinking until after, but she would always sit, we weren't here, but she'd always sit on the back, never at the tables. And, you know, we did in and out, but when she surrendered, she came to the table. She came herself.
Literally, yeah.
It was like, I am now part of. And Jenna, you went from the outside into the middle of the herd very quickly, and it was so beautiful. John knows too, though, we watched this happen. We watched her do this, and it was just amazing. And I remember I was given a little cross-stitch thing that said, let go and let God. And it was given to me by somebody, and that said, when you pass this on when you see somebody that really needs this. And she was in her program, probably on step 3, and getting that, and, wow, I just gave it to her and passed it on, and I was at her house and saw it hanging up, and I don't know where that is today. I'm sure she's probably gonna either keep that or pass that on to the next person, because that's what Jenna does. She's passing this message on, and she does. I see it in her every day. I see it, and you know, you're an inspiration for all the women in the program. You helped me so incredibly much through my journey. I am just so humbled and blessed to be with you and on this journey with you and be part of this group. So thanks.
Thanks, Jenny.
Everybody, I'm being an alcoholic. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, you go. Billy and I are always on the same page. You don't just help women, you help men.
Thank you.
I remember when I heard you talk about your dad, I wanted to kick his ass. I wanted to be your dad. But you told me you already had another Jewish guy. Who was? It's all right. It's all right. It's the only time we work with Norby. But I think what you say, and it's just amazing to be a 68-year-old guy and listen to a 31-year-old girl and a woman, believe me, and say and be so affected, and it speaks to what this program is about. And like I said before, I just don't want to be anywhere else. I just don't feel safe anywhere else, to tell you the truth. And you represent that safety. And I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben.
Hi, I'm Donna, and I'm an alcoholic. Jenna, I am half your age, but I give you the ultimate kudos. Vice versa. I feel like I am after your talk. I'm ready to re-embark my step 4, and I have compacted everything that you've talked about down so deep that I was convinced that the first time I worked the steps that I had this. I forgave Mom, I forgave Dad. Grandmother was my ultimate angel, and that is true. She is my ultimate angel to this day. She is why I'm alive, my grandmother and my favorite aunt. I do have to re-embark my mother and father again. I really have never talked about the depth like you've talked today, of the hurt, of the dysfunction that you've gone through. And I think for me to successfully stay sober, I need to really not be afraid to re-embark step 4. And I think today you gave me the strength, hope, and courage to do that, Jen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And truly, I am twice your age.
Billy.
My name is Billy Monaco.
Hey.
I'm twice your age as well.
Thank you.
At the same time. That was so powerful. John, that was amazing. When it comes from inside like that, it's just you have a glow around you, and that's what's so great about this program. You get to meet such phenomenal people, and I was welcomed here with open arms when I moved down here. And my wife and I were never blessed with children, but if we were, I would have loved to have a daughter that turned out as wonderful as you. And thank you for being in my life. You're a powerful example to me.
Thanks, Billy.
I'm Jason, I'm an alcoholic. Jenna, that's awesome. You rock. I, kind of telling on myself since it's about me and not about you. I've been slacking lately and haven't been coming to meetings, and I make excuses to not come when I could get here more often. And when I talk about it with my fellows, I talk about how great this meeting is. And I've been around for a little bit, and I go through phases where I don't want to come because I'm sick of hearing the same people say the same thing. And you're one of the people that make me think this meeting's freaking awesome now. And I always love to hear you. And I'll tell myself again, Travis called yesterday. And I haven't been around much. He's asking, how things are going and stuff. And I'm making excuses why I can't get to the meeting. And as he's talking, he's like, it's mentioned about coming today. And I'm thinking in my head, well, that's a speaker meeting. I don't really want to go. I'll make an excuse not to be there. And then he mentioned that you were speaking. So As soon as he said that, I made it a point to be here this morning.
Thanks, buddy.
And I'm blessed that I did, thank you.
Thanks, Chase.
Good.
I'm Joe Alcoholic.
Joe.
What a beautiful job you've done, my friend. You make me proud. I admire you so much, and I'm so grateful for our friendship, you know. I remember when I joined this group, and I was like, oh my God, you know, changing groups again. And then I saw you, and I hear you speak, and I'm like, I'm gonna be her friend, you know. And you told me that. You told me you felt the same way, and I feel like it's just a beautiful thing, you know, that AA gives me those friendships, you know, and we can get excited about a recovery, you know, and I invited you to go on this the speaker thing that we really liked and identified each other and stuff, and we went, and it was like the best road trip, you know, like, it's just like, you don't have to try, you know, with you. You're very honest. I remember when we were at the convention and the speaker was talking about the angry one and they were messing with you. But you're not the angry one anymore. You are not, you know. You're a happy person, and people can see the energy, and people can see how much you love and honor Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, and I commend you for it. You're a huge example, but also you're not afraid to be yourself, you know, and we have pretty honest conversations and we talk about sponsorship, and I'm just grateful that God has put you in my life. For that, I thank you.
Love you.
Thank you. Good morning, Proving Alcoholic.
Hey, Proving.
I've been in the program successfully straight 2 years. So I've met Jenna 2 years ago at the night meeting with Dr. Phillips, you know. And I struggled, but I remember my second relapse after I picked up my white chip. She came up to me and she's like, "This is the fucking last time." It took me 6 months and I didn't listen, but you know, you don't personally have to tell Jenna how you're feeling. If you share the meeting, I can assure you, you are bound to get a text from her saying something very comforting to you. She'll either send you a speaker tape, check your childhood, do your step 4.
Check your childhood. CYC.
And she's, basically, I just want to say I treasure it, and I really appreciate your friendship. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
I'm Mike, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
And it's funny just how self-centered I am, because I had the same thought that Jenny had, which was I never knew that when she told me she was drinking in AA for a year, I'm like, oh, I didn't notice. I'm kind of busy. But I have the privilege of being her boyfriend's sponsor, so I even know more about her. So when Clark calls me and says, Jenna doesn't want me to go golfing because the dishes aren't done and the things are right, now I get it.
Fact.
But truthfully, what I wanted to say was that was just a very impressive share, and very, you know, like the verse you read from the book. It was so good because it was just from your experience. It was not embellished. It was not made for impact, and it was awesome. But what I have the other privilege of seeing is when it comes to practicing these principles in all of our affairs, I've been around their house a lot when life issues are going on, you know? And I've been sitting at the kitchen table when she says, well, here's how I would like to handle this. And we say, yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, you know? And we, yeah, what does the book say, you know? Or here's what I heard from my sponsor, or this other situation that I saw where someone handled it this way. And a lot of that has to do with something you mentioned, which is, how do I take a position of tolerance based on, I wonder what this person's childhood was like, right? And now we see how the program teaching us that gives us such a way to diffuse so many situations and bring that love and tolerance to these situations. We see Jenna start to communicate with Dad again, which is an amazing thing to see happen, and not inadvertently kill Clark's parents. All just so amazing to see. So that was really great. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy, an alcoholic.
Hey, Nancy.
So for me, I've been in this program about 10 months, and I actually had the privilege of being invited to Jenna's house to a ladies' meeting where Jenna told her story. And I felt very privileged that somebody would take me that deep into their confidence, not knowing the program as well as I do now. And I still feel the same way. However, the difference between you telling it then and you telling it now, they're worlds apart. They're worlds apart. And I talk about you often, I really do, you can ask Jenny, and I'm always saying the same thing, that you are crushing with this program. Like if I am looking to somebody that's working the steps every day, or looking to somebody who I would want as a mentor in that respect, like I have to say, like you are working it in every facet of your life at every time. For me personally, you've put a lot of my kids' crazy shit into perspective for me. You know, like, I'm in the meeting, like Praveen said, in the middle of the meeting, like having a fucking meltdown, like literally spontaneously combusting. She'll send me a text and be like, really, is it that fucking serious? I'm like, or she'll send me, like, she sent me a text, I mean, maybe 6 months ago. I still have it when I'm about to, sometimes I read it and I'm gonna pee my pants because it's that funny. But I need that, and like we had gone out to breakfast once after a meeting and I was giving her this whole story and she was like, yeah, you know what? If I read Ken, I'd be like, fuck you too. And I was like, devastated. And I was like, wow, I'm really far away from being a kid. Right? So I'm not twice your age, thank God for that, but I am 50. And I have to say, I learned so more from you about my own child than I have living with him for the whole 16 years he's been alive. So you are a genuine blessing. And I'm so impressed with the difference of how you told your story with all the hurt and the pain the first time. And now you told it with your experience about applying AA to it and who you are now, which is like the best thing you could do for everybody in this room. So well done, sister.
We over?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.